So one of the really important things to learn when you're 3D printing and making things in Nomad is how to do keys. And we've covered this topic in the past, but what we haven't done is covered it in any great depth. So this week I'm going to look at how to make keys like this that will make sure you can join your parts together when you 3D print and that their tolerances are correct, and more importantly than anything, the scaling is correct at this point. So I'm going to take this tutorial really slowly because it's quite complex if you haven't done this kind of stuff before. So before we even think about making any keys or any kind of splitting or anything like that, we've got to understand scale. And just trust me that this matters much later on. So we're going to look at how we start a model and what size it is when we start it. And that's because once we get to the part where we have to know about tolerances, which is how much one piece fits to another, we need to know the size really accurately. So let's just start with that first of all. So this is a default scene. So I'm going to come up to the top and delete the sphere that's in there. And I'm just going to open a box. So there we go. We have a plain old box. And I'll just make it a darker color just so as you can see it. Okay, so what we first want to do is let's have a look at it from a wireframe point of view. So we'll come up here and we'll go wireframe. Now, as you can see, it's got tons and tons of polygons and we don't want that. And we haven't hit validate up here yet, which means we can edit that. So if you come into this section where we were, and we just want to bring well, we don't want to change the size at all. What we want to do is bring the box division, so the divisions on X, down all the way. So we just don't need all those polygons for what we're about to do. Now they're all down, let's have a look at what size this default cube is. So it's hanging in space there and I've got the grid on. So there's a way to test what size it is. And all you do is you come up here and you just go to, well, we'll just validate it first of all. And then we'll go down to the bottom here and we'll go to measure. And if you click one point to the next point, it'll tell you what size it is. So that says 0.89. Basically, it says roughly 1. So what that means actually is 1 millimeter. So if you were to now export this, you would have yourself a 1 millimeter cube, which is not really much use to anybody. So just to prove that, what we'll do is we'll actually do that. So let's make another cube, another box. We'll move it over to the side. I'll knock that divisions down again. I'm only knocking it down simply because it makes it quicker to export it, etc. We will force paint it to blue again. So under size, which is down here, we've got 1, and we know that that's 1 millimeter. So let's just make it a centimeter. So it's basically 10. So that's 10 millimeters. And there we have now a 10 millimeter box, or a 1 centimeter box. And we'll validate that one as well, and we'll just put it level roughly. Now what that doesn't really give us any confidence really, because it, you know, we could be completely wrong. We can just test it again if we want. So measure, drag it from one corner to another roughly. I mean, it says 7.82 there, but that's because I held it in space incorrectly. See there? You have to be careful of that because it can really mess you up like that. So drag it from one corner to another corner. It's 9 point something. Oh, done it again. One way to stop that, I've done a video about this, is turn perspective off, snap it, and then you can quite often just do it like that. So there you go, it's 9.98 there. So that means that's 10 millimeters. So we've now got let's turn perspective back on. We've got a 1 centimeter and a 1 millimeter. Okay, so we'll export it as an OBJ, and I'll just save it out to my Dropbox to allow me to go over to the PC. So let's just jump down to Chitterbox. Now in Chitterbox, as you can see, if you open it up, it comes with it's clearly the correct scale. It's 1 centimeter and it's 1 millimeter. And as you can see, the grid there on the floor is actually just a 1 centimeter grid. So we know that what's coming out of Nomad is exactly that size. So that's a great place to be, and it's a great place to start. So we're back in Nomad then, and obviously we've got 2 cubes that don't really help us whatsoever. So we need a model that we're going to work with. So let's just bring in one that I'm printing at the moment, and we'll just go back up to open. So in project, you want add to scene, and we'll just bring in this Ceratosaurus. So this is a creature that I'm printing at the moment as a full print. So we've got the wireframe on there, so that needs to go first of all, or we won't be able to see it. And as you can see there, you've got a base. I'll just pop the outline on again, and we've got a lower base, a base, and the body. So what we're going to do is we'll delete anything we don't want to print. So we'll delete the base. So with them all selected, teeth, eyes, and Rex body, what we'll do is we'll voxel merge them together. Now you must be careful here because every iPad is different, and this is where you'll get a lot of crashes. So I roughly know what I'll get away with on this. So I'm putting it to 1270, around 1200, and I'll voxel merge it. And I just happen to know that will give me the right amount of detail. It won't lose it at all, and it gives me a model that's just under 1 million polygons. So now I would go a little bit higher than that, but I want to keep it quite lean for us to work with. Now we know this is 1 centimeter, so this creature here is a little over 1 centimeter wide, so that's no use to us either. So let's scale him up to what we want him to be. So we'll just use the arrow, the circles, and we'll just do something like, let's just see, let's bring him up there. So now we've got this cube, and we know that that's centimeter roughly, so our grid isn't far off that actually. So if you want to say make this one, that would be go to perspective and snap, snap, and that'll be 1 2 3 4 5. That's 5 centimeters across, so that's not big enough, so let's go bigger like that. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, so that's 9 centimeters. So we'll go a little bit bigger, and we'll make him 10 centimeters across. So because we've got an idea of the size of our model, we know it's correct for Chitterbox, we know it's correct for our slicing software already, and we've got our 1 centimeter cube, and we've got our 1 millimeter cube, and we're not going to delete those because I want to use those as a little bit of a guide when we do the next bit. Okay, so we've got our 10 centimeter Ceratosaurus. He's about 1 million polygons, and we can make that lower later on if we decide to decimate it even further, but I'm not worried about that at the moment. We've got enough detail in it so we know it's right. So what we now need to do is split it. So to split something is super simple. So you just go up to split, and you just pick either the lasso, the polygon, or the line. Now we want to use line because we want a straight split, and we want to split it down here, down by his shoulders like this. Now be careful you don't go over any other part of the model because it'll split through anything. If you feel that that's a problem, you can use another tool which is called the Polygon Tool here, but we're happy with that. So let's just split off his head like so. And what that's given us now is you just have to hit view so we can carry on moving around. So now we've got a nice split roughly around his neck. We'll go to gizmo and use the arrow keys, and we'll move him out just to show you what it's like. You must be careful not to move it off position. So it's all right to move it to have a look at, but you must be able to double tap and get it back because we need it in exactly the same position. Okay, so the next part is you can go ahead and just split him by the tail. You can split the legs off. You can do anything you want once I've shown you how to do this. So we'll do it once, and again, I'll work really, really slowly with it to show you how to add a key and a hole. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is take this, which is the body, and it's called teeth there, so I'm going to rename that so I know exactly what I'm dealing with. I'm not usually very good at this. So body. And we'll name this one. We'll actually pin this to keep it open. We'll call this one head. And you'll see why it matters. Oops, I like uppercase normally. Head. And then we've got a box and box which don't matter. So what we want to do is we want to take the body and we want to hide it by turning the eye off. Now you can see it's semi-transparent like that until you click off it. Now you can't see it at all. So that's worked really, really well. So I'm happy with that. So now you take your box that you made earlier, and you know this is a 1 centimeter box. and you bring it across, and we want it to go in here as a key. But a key has to be smaller at the end that's going into the other part of the model. So what you do is, quite simply with this one as well, you go to SEL mask, which is mask, and then we'll use mask, the rectangle part of it. We'll just mask off the back. And the reason we didn't want any polygons in this is because now with that masking like that, you come around here, and now if you use Gizmo and scale with the outer one, it will just scale proportionally anything that isn't masked. Because there's no polygons in between, we've just got the, as you can see, it's just compared to the model over there, you can see the difference. That means we can manipulate it quite simply. So we'll turn that wireframe off. So we've now got that, and it's definitely like a wedge shape, which is what we want. So now we'll reduce the size. So first of all, you have to hold mask and strike up to clear the mask. Scale it down, and it's about 1/2 centimetre there. We could measure it, but that doesn't actually matter at the moment. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking to position it somewhere so we know that it will go in basically you want it parallel with this line here. So it goes straight in. So we'll go like this, and we'll move that in like so. Make sure you embed it right in, that's also important as well. And that looks like it will be fine. Now the reason these keys are this shape is, one, if it's smaller on the outer edge here, that means that it will go into a hole and it'll receive into the hole a lot better. The male to female will be better. Trying to put a cube into another cube shape isn't easy because of the edges, the way they catch. So if one has this rhomboid shape, it fits in much better. And what we now need to do is make sure that those two will fit together. So what we do is, and this is where it's quite important, we will rename this, and we'll call this key 1. Key 1. So now what we want to do is take key 1, bring it to the bottom and duplicate it. And what we'll do is we'll call this one key 2. And just to be sure, I'm going to change it to red. Don't need to do that, but it just helps me to show you. And now what we'll do is we'll hide that and click off it. So now we're back to our head and our key 1. Key 2 is still turned off. Now those two together, highlight them both. Don't have either of them hidden at all. And then what we want to do is we want to merge them together. So we're going to voxel merge again, and we know, you know, work this out yourself. At this point you should save, because this is where most crashes happen. So I will actually do that, just because I don't trust myself and it would be quite embarrassing to crash it at this point. So we've got the save has been done. We'll go back here and we'll voxel merge. We'll hit voxel merge, and fingers crossed if it doesn't crash at this point, what will happen is the key will merge with the head, which it has done. And let's just check it visually. So one thing you can do is let's just change the color to another type of blue, and we'll flood fill it all. So that's worked well. Actually, that's too light for you guys to see that. So like so, I'll just move the light around a little bit so you can see it as well. So inside here now, that key is now completely joined to that head, and we'll put on the wireframe, and you can see there it's now voxel remeshed it as well. So now it's not a low poly cube anymore. It's basically just what voxel remesh does. If you don't know, it just averages polygons across the whole model and it makes it all one. So that's cleaned that out inside. There's nothing inside that now at all. Let's turn that off. And again, I'm still going very slowly. So if you've never done this before, you might want to go over this video, you know, a couple of times just to get familiar with what I'm doing. So what we'll do now is we'll just turn off the wireframe. So, and you can see now we've got the head. In fact, what I will do, I've changed my mind again. I'm going to change it to another color, just to be really, really clear with you. So if we turn everything else back on, we've got another key there, which is in exactly the same place. So doing the red and the green has really helped. So they are in exactly the same place. And we've also got a body now. Now what we want to do is we need to put a hole in this body that allows us to batten the head to it. And because it's a square, the key is square, it can't rotate. That's another reason why we do these squares. But everything is in, so the keys are in the same place in digital space. You can't have that in the real world because things can't be in the same place, but digitally, obviously we can. So what we have to do in another program like Fusion 360 or Rhino or any of the CAD programs, we could dial in a tolerance. We call what it's called dimensioning. And dimensioning means we can actually type in a number for what we want, but we can't do that in here quite the same. It's not quite as simple. So the reason I wanted you to make sure you understand scaling is because we need to make up an idea of what our tolerance is. So for example, if we know that this is a 1 millimeter cube, like so, and we know that our key 2 here, I'll just turn it back on, this one here, is roughly going to be, we could measure it, but it's about 5 millimeters here on the front end. What we want to do is we want to just scale this up to about 1/4 mil. So it's about 1/4 mil away from, let's just turn the other ones off and you'll see it. So 1/4 mil away from the cube that's inside it, or the key that's inside it. And what that means is that will give us some real world tolerance. Okay, so now let's rename that head because we merged it with the key, so we can call that head again now. And don't forget, when you merge stuff, the naming convention can be messed up. So let's just get that right. Head. So we've got a head. We've got another key there with the tolerance that we've already defined. So let's hide the head. There's our key, and then there's our body. So what we now need to do is we need to take away, or you would say Boolean in another program, but we're not Booleaning, we're voxel removing. So we're using voxel remesh to remove. How do you do that? So you turn the key, make sure it's both of them are ticked, but the one that we want to remove is set to not visible. And that means it'll go this kind of like transparent checkedy kind of look. And then we voxel remesh that. So we'll go about 1200. You might have to go lower than this. You might go the same as this, depending on which iPad you've got. And what that will do is the transparent one will be removed from the opaque one. And that'll give us then a hole that is roughly about 1/4 millimeter more tolerance than the actual peg that's going to come in. So that would give you a nice key now. So if I turn this on, and what you can see is, it's hard to see. Obviously you can see that it goes in there, or you can see that this way around here. You can't see the hole because it does an outline, but you know that that's going into there. And what you can do now is you can just move this out just to have a look at it and just to see. And you now know you've got two parts, one that will key nicely into the other. Now what I do, there's two things you can do here when you've printed that. You can just glue it in, and because you've got that little bit of real world tolerance, you can just fill that with a glue or a resin or an epoxy, whatever it is you need. And you have got about 1/4 mil to play with all around, so that gives you a tiny little bit of tolerance. It means it definitely will fit, so you won't have any problems where you get things that just won't go in and leaves a gap around here, because this shouldn't leave you with a gap at all. So let's just turn our outline off, and you can see there, thinking that, you know, if that little cube that we had, this one here, is only 1 millimeter, you can think that that seam around there, you can see how small that is, and that should now mean that you've made it in such a way that that will be, well, pretty much seamless really. And because it fits in nicely with that, the way we've defined it with that key, you shouldn't have a problem. Now that is 101 keying, and it gets a bit more complex when you start having to do shaped areas like this leg, for example, or if you want to do this shoulder plugging into there. But we'll do that in another video, because if you haven't done this before, it will be good for you to go and try this on different parts of the body. So this type of keying is where you can really get a nice clean line and get the model back without interfering with any other parts of the model, like the arms or the legs or anything like that. So have a go at that one, and then in a later video we'll start doing a bit more complexity, and we'll also look at another way of joining them, which is magnets, and that's something I use quite a lot in this kind of model. So I will print this for the next video, and then we'll have a look at what that means in terms of putting magnets in there as well. I hope you're enjoying these videos, and if you are, please give us a thumbs up, because it does help us to get in front of other artists who might like this kind of content. And if you've given us a thumbs up, then it means you like us, so hopefully you wouldn't mind giving us a bit of a subscribe, and that means we can let you know when we upload new content. Have a great week everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.